It's an optimization platform for IT. So there's a couple components to it. Phil is behind the technology build. Um, I met Phil 20 years ago. He was running IT for a $4 billion company, and he had optimization issues running that large of a company. And so I did sourcing. I was a sourcing partner at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. We were doing strategic relationship. It's called a shared spend program for capital investment companies. Got to know him really well, and his mindset was just one of those people that you wanted to hang on to and get to know and stay close to. Um, so a little bit of background from me that goes into that is prior to building this company, I built a cloud computing company, which I ended up selling to the third largest cable company. And there was two components of that build. There was the delivery of the build, which means the client experience is the focus of building a managed service provider on compute. Okay, and then there's the flip side of that, which is selling to a third largest cable company and building the software that actually tells the entire story for them. So it was always part of the vision, and the vision was to build a single pane of glass where you had API feeds to provide a better experience for people buying compute or deploying their own IT strategies. And so fast forward, exit that, take some time, start to launch this company. We buy a company in Dallas, Texas. It was an old integrator, and here we are 2 years later with our own software platform, which was always a part of this vision. And so the entire vision is how can IT teams find a place in a home that they trust, where there's integration of AI, there's all the components that they're looking for, from data being fed into it to all of the compute systems and applications and a story being told for optimization. And so we spent time building this. This is I call it a work of art on his part, because his clients have been Nike and New Balance and Korn Ferry and others, that he's been doing this for a long time. And so I'll let you dig in, Phil, and kind of share this story. But it's meant to be a partnership. If you leave here, our goal is for you to leave here and want the platform. We're giving it to everybody that's here today for a year for free. And so we'll set you guys up with a free year of the platform. And there's core components of it that aren't paid for, and there's other parts that are. So the core platform is free for a year. There's some things in here that are separate from that, that you might want separately, such as Cloud FinOps. But the platform is built for clients. And so I've been on this journey of the client experience for IT leaders. And so, that's where I'll leave it off to you to take over and kind of share that experience and the what you built for them.
Sounds good. Great to meet all of you, and look forward just to have a lively conversation back and forth. This is meant to be interactive, so this is here for you. Ask questions, gain insights. But my journey, I've been in IT basically my whole life, figuring out how to manage things, optimize, how to share insights into the office of the CIO and CFO. I think that's really the biggest thing: is how do you share those insights? How do you get that information? How do you bring it together? And over the course of my, call it 25 plus years, maybe a little longer, in working with this, the challenge has always been, where is all the information and how do I report on the information? And so, what I found in most organizations that I've been working with, there's a lot of data silos. So, for example, I'm going to start off with the concept of contract management. So, most organizations, I'm not going to say most, a lot of organizations, when you talk about contract management, first thing they say is, yeah, I've got a file store with that. I put all my contracts in a file share. Everything's labeled appropriately. We really don't know. We're not managing it. We don't have a good report that shows us what our commitments are, what our open contracts are. What do we need to do? Terms, commitments, and so forth. So, what we've done is basically built in, and the practice is we assign a project manager, a client experience manager, to work hand in hand with you to basically ingest all of your contract information, whether you procure it through us or one of our partners, or they're just contracts you're managing as an organization. We want you to have a home for managing all of your data. So you come in here, you can see everything holistically. You can see what your annual recurring payments are, your monthly recurring payments are, basically your spend exposure, kind of the belt and suspenders of monitoring what you're doing within your environment and giving that office of the CIO, CFO insights into what you're doing, both top level and drill down. Then we come down, we have the ability to basically see, sorry, I'm doing this in a corner, but then we have the devil's in the details. So here's the individual contracts. And so this is my, once I'm in here as a client. So as I'm in here, I put my contracts, I put my information, I attach a supplier. We have over 550 suppliers within the database right now. If a supplier is not here, you'd open up a support ticket with us. we'd go ahead and do the analysis and we'd add that supplier in there. And the key thing of adding those suppliers in there is our supplier insights module, which I'll go over next. So over here, we capture the monthly recurring charges, annual recurring charges, any terms commitments, evergreen clauses, making sure that you know when to notify a vendor, a supplier, when a contract is due up. And if you don't hit it by that evergreen clause date, it automatically renews for another term. Whether it's a month to month term or an annualized term, you get caught, and we've seen it time and time again. So, want to make sure that as those evergreen clauses are coming up, we're working with you, your partners are working with you, or at least you're working with somebody to basically get insight and start having those conversations. Hey, my contract's due up. I'd like to renegotiate. My contract is due up. I may want to look at a technology change. I may want to look at a shift in a solution. But if you're not looking at the data, Peter Drucker said it best, you can't manage what you can't measure. And so want to give you the ability to really measure your data points so you can make some better decisions. And then associated with the contracts is all your assets, physical and virtual assets that might be associated with those contracts. So as you click into those various areas, looking at those assets, once again, physical or virtual, we're bringing them into the platform. You can take notes on this. Single place for everybody to see. Procurement teams love this, especially from an IT perspective. You're looking at buying. Where are you taking notes on those individual line items and what you need to do with those individual line items come renewal or even come deployment? So building on the contract management, we then take the contracts to then build our supplier insights. Like I said, supplier insights module, we're going out and we're collecting data points, vendor profile, supplier profile information, as well as supplier news for over 550 suppliers right now. This is kind of a snapshot of all the news articles. Larger image shows they have a lot more news during the period of data collection. Right now, in the top right, we're filtering on 3 days, but you have the ability to change the filter, do what best meets your specific needs in terms of those filtered dates. You can filter on specific categories and so forth. Coming in here, interested in articles, and then we take that and we look at and give you the ability to say, I just want to look at my contracted suppliers. I don't want to see everything. I just want to see who I'm doing business with. And so here you can see very quickly, here's the profiles of those contracted suppliers. And then over here, click on the contracted supplier news. And all of a sudden, for the last 5 days, I'm seeing all the supplier news for those contracted suppliers that I have out there. Insights that you would normally have to go out to Google News, Yahoo, go out to all these areas. And then what we're working on is an AI basically summary email that you'd be getting on a weekly basis that you'd subscribe to. So you'd get summary level information. Here's all the news going on with your suppliers. This is what to be cognizant of. Are they having financial issues? Did they get compromised? Things that you should know firsthand from an IT or from a sourcing perspective, what's going on with your suppliers. If you don't understand that, somebody else comes to you, you don't want to be caught, red-handed without knowing what's going on with you in your environment. So we build on that, and then we have a project management module. Project management is all about when you get services from a new vendor, new supplier, you turn up whether it's a new UCAS solution, new security solution, whatever it is, you want to make sure from the time you're buying it to deployment to turning down potentially alternate services that you may be paying for because you don't want to have duplicative charges coming in at any given time. So when you're buying stuff, assign a project manager to you, work hand in hand, develop a project plan, and then get everything within a single pane of glass, kind of managing those engagements, making sure everything goes through from beginning to end. Allows everybody to be held accountable and driving the implementation forward. So project management. So from project management, we go into our IT data pack. Our IT data pack is basically call it a data repository where we will be dumping in automated reports for you to download and get access to via PDF, PowerPoint, your basically format of choice. And you'd basically see, I want to see my CIO dashboard. I now need to email it out for the team to see. Or maybe you want to just give them access to the portal for them to have access. They'll have direct access into these individual components to be able to see the report and analysis. The other thing is you may want to come to us and say, hey, we're looking at a new solution. How do we deploy that solution? What are the things that we should be looking for? And so we can develop an analysis with you and go through those areas.
Yeah.
I think one of the key things, it's all data-driven reports. So as you're looking at the data, this is us providing, hey, here are your requirements as a whole, capturing those requirements, capturing what are the proper, what are the suppliers that meet your specific area of interest, if you will, and where you are going. And it's up to you to down select and go with the proper supplier that best meets your needs. So you are driving this. It's not us pushing. It's you understanding these are suppliers, these are the pros and cons, and this is what I need as an
So this is
organization.
what I did in the past with him. We would have a bunch of suppliers up here. They had an existing company that they part that was that they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to leave at all. So what we would do is they would come to us and we would do negotiation leveraging. We would leverage them. Well, losing that
Yeah,
client costs a lot more than actually dropping your cost, which a lot of people don't want to do. So the first run is now we can't lower our cost. In fact, it's too heavy. But then once they go through potentially losing it, and you start to provide the analytical data that says, okay, this other company is more valuable than you in these areas, it becomes a concern.
absolutely.
And as it starts to get to concerns, the providers often start to go, yes, I understand. And we're gonna get so good over the next 3 years in pinpointing pricing in the market because we have so much data already that we're gonna be able to tell you what the price point should be within the UCAS, CCAS market or computing market because we're gathering all that data, putting it into our engine, and we're able to start pinpointing pricing on products, services, solutions, software across the board. And a lot of that's product size, a lot of that's company specific size wise,
Mhm.
uh, growth wise, all those things, complexity wise, all those things play into it.
Absolutely. So this is the data gathering, data presentation on, some of the analysis that we're doing. So in order to put together this analysis, we now need information. So the data points that we start with is our SaaS connector. So SaaS FinOps, there's a term out there, Cloud FinOps, which I'll go over next, but SaaS FinOps is understanding what SaaS applications you have out there, what subscriptions, what connections, who is tying into what areas. So over here, we got a list of users on the left-hand side. And over on the right-hand side, we basically have boxes that show us how often individuals are logging into particular applications. This is tying in 100% into your single sign-on platform, your identity provider. So whether it's Azure Entra, Okta, Google G Suite, we're going to tie into that environment. We're going to capture the applications. And what's neat is we can capture the applications as you need us to, which means I've got Office 365 here capturing all Office 365 components, but another client may say, you know what? I just want to see my difference between Office 365 and Microsoft Teams. So we can actually provide that difference within the reporting capabilities so you can see how your users are using and logging into the various services. So over here, you can see obviously the biggest one is Office 365. You can see how often people are logging into it on a regular basis. But there may be other services, and use Zoom as a good example over here. There may be other services that, wait, only 4 times they've logged in? I know they're using Zoom a lot more. They're on constant meetings. But I'm only getting in this interface right here their sign in activity. When did they leverage sign on activity to access a certain service? And if they're, call it cached credentials or leveraging some cache component, they're not going to see those login credentials at every time. So you've got to actually tie into that provider to see the actual utilization. And I'll show you that in a moment. So this is our SaaS utilization at a high level. Then we get to see the SaaS utilization when you're going through your renewals, as you're having discussions on, and let's use just as we're going through this, maybe we're doing a Lucid renewal and I've got 10, licenses on Lucid. I happen to know that every time I use Lucid, it asks me to authenticate. So I know my authentication details are correct on the Lucid side. So now I see my 10 licenses that they're asking me to renew. But wait a second, I'm only using 4, 2, 3. So I used 4 in October, 2 in November, and we're back to 4 in January. Why am I buying 10 licenses? Fact-based decisions. You want to see what you're doing all within a single pane of glass. As you go up, then we have the login activity. So this is just a quick looking at the, what applications, how often people are actually logging into the various applications, and a location analysis. One of the coolest things, especially from an HR perspective, where are people working from? And then you can see these are the successful attempts to actually access the environment. So I can see Alexa on the top. She was in Boca Raton, Florida, and New York. All of a sudden, I'm looking at it from an IT perspective. Should she be in all these locations? Or better yet, I'm really enforcing a VPN solution. Maybe I've got a Cato platform and you need to be using your Cato solution to log into everything, and I've got conditional access. And maybe you see a break in that and going, wait a second, why are they able to log into areas that they shouldn't have access to log in from? So once again, another data point. We then
One comment on this user analytics, it's actually really important, is that, I spent a lot of time with Citrix trying to, on the virtual desktop strategy, trying to think about when I look at users, what data does HR need? What data does legal need? How often is IT being touched by those organizations to address it? And so when you look at this, it's giving the data at your fingertips to say, here's the user story in their environment. And so building that story into something that's part of a single pane of glass platform is very valuable. And so IT teams are often taxed with this. And so we're building that story of the user's journey through their own software, what they're doing or what they're not doing. And so as we build these reports for executive teams, we'll be able to pinpoint users that are within range
Mhm.
and within performance range against use of applications. And so it's really important as we go into this kind of world, which we've been in, which is dispersed workforces. How do you fine tune that? Organizations are trying to figure that out. And so a lot of the build out of the data set is to further fine tune users, location for risk, and then also users for optimization and for execution.
So building on that, that's the user authentication. Where are they logging in from? What are they doing from an authentication perspective? We then go into our supplier analytics module. Supplier analytics is where we will have specific modules that tie into various suppliers. And so the two that we're showcasing right now with a roadmap to add more is first is UCAS, and we've got a Zoom component. So the Zoom component, like I showed you, you can see Zoom users authenticating, but now we want to see what are they doing within the platform? How are we leveraging the solution as a whole? So first thing is, here's my usage analysis. These are my licenses straight out of the Zoom platform, okay? So I can see I've got two, call it webinar licenses, 28 hosts, but I'm only using 18. And then I've got my storage down on the bottom in terms of my monthly storage commit that I can leverage for my paid tier. Where am I sitting right now? Then we go into the Zoom meetings. This is how are my users using the platform? Who is engaged? So as we kind of go up here, I love picking on my friend Alexa over here, is as we look at Alexa, we can cover over her and see, okay, color path shows us how often people are logging in or not logging in. Number of participants, she had 73 this month so far, 23 meetings, 3,300 minutes as a whole. I can see how often Dylan's on it. And we can go back in time to see people. And then I got the beast over here for Randy, how much he's using the platform and how often he's actually using it. So we can see how often the efficacy of the program, maybe when people started and we started gathering information. So the neat thing about this is we're bringing the data in and presenting it to you so you can actually store it within the platform. At this point, we're bringing it indefinitely so you can just scroll over. We're bringing in 6 months of data for as long as you've had Zoom, and then we're storing it on a go-forward basis. So you're building a story about your usage and your usage patterns. Take that. Now you have your Zoom phone usage because now basically you're going through a renewal and you want to know how often you're using your services. So I've got my Zoom meetings. Now I've got my Zoom phone, inbound, outbound calling. Who's using it? Over here on the lower left is actually Zoom calls by person. So we're actually counting the numbers, counting the minutes. So it gives you an opportunity to see, am I leveraging the right licenses or not? What do I need to be looking at doing? Okay. The other module, and then we go into Zoom users, which gives you the ability to see days since last login. So over here, real quick, so you have how often are they using it, but then when's the last time they logged into it? So I've got a series of users over here. Sorry, my mouse isn't cooperating. I've got a series of users over here that haven't logged into the platform in a while, but they're licensed. Why am I paying for these users? So I can look at the licensing and cleaning things up. Once again, everything's done from right here so you can see all your data points and work with your teams. That's the Zoom module. The other module that has supplier analytics around it is our Office productivity component. Office 365. This is where you can tie into your Office 365 environment understand your exact monetary commitment. And how many of you guys are on CSPs versus like EAs? You guys mostly CSPs? Like, are you buying individual licenses or enterprise agreements? Do you know?
On Microsoft.
Yeah, Microsoft.
How are y'all buying your licenses?
What's that?
Individual.
Individual? Okay. So on this one, this is specifically looking at your, kind of CSP licenses. We're going in there, and what happens is when I was building this with the team, we had to take our invoices, compare it to the license usage, because you can't go to the Microsoft portal as a CSP partner and look at your licenses yourself. So we're having the ability to basically bring down your usage in real time. You can see what your total users are, your committed amount, and then we give you the ability to actually go snapshot dates. So if you're looking back in time, we keep end of month in perpetuity. So you can see how you've scaled month over month within your environment for as long as you've been on a client. Waste monitor, how much are you actually using? How much is left to waste? So over here, I can see I've got my Office 365 Business Standard. I've got certain allocated users, and I can see I've got 11 unused with a total unused license value of $137. I've overbought in that area. There may be reasons why you have waste, but it's important to know what you have from a reallocation perspective. And maybe when you're going in and renegotiating for your licenses, do I have my right licenses? Do I need to look at moving my licenses and maybe get cheaper or more expensive licenses to accommodate some of my business requirements? User analysis gives the ability, once again, drive down to the user. What's the user doing? What are my licenses? So over here, just to pick on Alexa again, I can see Alexa's $12.50 a month, Andrew's $35.27. Why is there a difference there? We can start looking at the licenses, the license packs, and start making some decisions about what is the proper allocation, what should that license look like? And then what's fun is go to the feature matrix to really have some intelligent conversations with your teams. So we work with this and we're saying, okay, well, what's the difference between standard and premium? Why would I look at one over the other? So we're trying to stay within the platform as much as we can to drive these discussions forward, to have kind of fact-based decisions for moving forward in the future. Right? And then last couple things, cloud FinOps. You guys doing anything AWS, Azure, GCP in the cloud? Little cloud presence there or anything? Used to be AWS. So what we're doing is basically bringing this down. So a lot of our clients, what we've heard in the past, they're getting their invoices at the end of the month and they're surprised. They're not monitoring their spend on a day-to-day. They don't have that belt and suspenders monitoring of their spend management. So what we do with the Cloud FinOps practice is we basically work with you, tie in and extrapolate that data on an hourly basis, and we're monitoring via AI any anomalies that may be going on within your environment. And we're putting in checks and balances within those areas to escalate those to us and to your team to take action. So someone may have clicked a button wrong. All of a sudden you have a 10% increase very quickly. We want to get on top of that. Otherwise, you can get hit very quickly on charges. So lower right is daily spend, lower left is monthly spend. What's that? Question?
Just had a question.
Shoot.
So does y'all's platform integrate with any other systems like ERP systems and everything, especially if y'all are looking at reporting and issues with the cash flow or anything like that?
Love that. So so the next module I'm going to show you is our technology expense module, where we actually do invoice processing with direct integration into the ERPs.
Okay.
So I'm going to jump on that one right next.
So accounting coming out.
I love it. I love it. That's where it should be. This is all money. So right now, what the modules I've shown you are all about spend monitoring, spend management from a holistic perspective in terms of seeing the data points come in to allow you to make decisions based on what's best for your organization.
Be super helpful, especially if you're looking at like cash flow, like you were saying, money going out, money coming in. You need
100%.
to keep track of that.
Yep.
As a CFO.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm going to jump into the TEM module next. So the TEM module is, and hopefully you guys have heard this term, TEM stands for Technology Expense Management. This is the art of basically processing invoices for our clients. And so this is around all technology invoices for our clients. I was doing some consulting over the summer for, let's just call it a multimedia company, and they had got taken for 5 invoices for the total of $300,000. And the way they did it was, and I did the investigation with the forensics team, perfectly formatted chat GPT generated emails going to an AP clerk that essentially created it was, and they were smart about it. They created the bill.com. They said, okay, we're a vendor. Let me just create my profile. Here's my W-9 and get that going. Not asking for any money. I just was asked to set up a profile within your, basically spend management, your ERP system, set up a profile. Fantastic. Profile set up there, and it was sitting there for a couple months dormant. No questions asked, no nothing. Then, call it a few months later, they started getting emails on payment requests against those now approved vendors that were created in the platform. And so now all of a sudden it's an emergency and they have the email trail with the CFO on it. You need to pay this or you will, that immediate, as soon as someone says immediate, IT all of a sudden says, hey, CFO will never say immediate unless they call you and you're talking to them. So you need to have some kind of code word there. So long story short, 5 invoices got processed, $300,000 by an AP clerk that is no longer there. So part of what we're doing here is we're bringing in the invoices for you. So let's say you have myriad of technology providers, whether it's telecommunication providers, mobility. We're ingesting, we're bringing in, we're going out to all the portals, whether it's via EDI, snail mail, PDF files from different portals. We're bringing that stuff down into our platform. We're then doing that expense allocation for you based on your cost allocation rules and your GL coding requirements. And then we're pushing that out to your ERP from a cost allocation perspective. And we can either allow you to pay that on your own, where you're held basically liable for making those payments, or we can make those payments for you and we have insurance against that. And we're going to take the necessary precautions to make sure those payments go out to the correct vendors. And we're held liable for making sure those payments are correct. So over here, we're just looking at like the TEM platform. So this is where, especially if you have a lot of circuits, services across the country, it's understanding, so here I can dig down and notice it's interactive. So I can actually see the services that are associated with various providers. The neat thing is we're processing all those invoices. We're bringing those invoices in. We're managing all of your inventory and we're making sure the inventory is tagged to specific locations. So you have further insights into the spend, into the management, and then you can tie into the various area and go directly into the platform if you wanted to, or just have the summary level reporting, which most of our clients leverage. All right. Last couple things to hit on is the supplier quotes. Supplier quotes is the ability for you to see all the various areas that we are doing or capable of doing when you are working with one of our providers and you're interested in looking at various solutions. So over here, you're interested in cloud solutions. So you can click on cloud solutions. Typically, you're going to be working directly with your account executive, your account manager. But in this case, you can see the questions we're going to be asking. You can see what we're going to be going through as we do the due diligence, as we're having the discussions. So we want to make sure you have access to this level of information. If you want, you're welcome to fill in the information, send it to us. We'll have an account executive work directly with you and get the quotes for you. Or you can just contact us directly and we would do it on your behalf. All right. And then, so as we sort of go through this, the last component is the communication and collaboration with us. Obviously, we have phone, our numbers, and we can also do support calls. So on the support requests, we've got support contact information. We take support requests for anything with regards to the platform as a whole, anything that you may have issues with. Product feature sets, we are consistently adding more. It's an evolution. The revolution was the deployment, getting it up and running. The evolution is now adding different components, listening to our clients, understanding where their requirements are, listening to our partners, understanding what they're looking for, and adding all these different variances, if you will, to take the platform to the next level. So that's that. And then also from a case management perspective, we want to give you the ability to manage all your cases. So as your team is entering tickets, everybody can see everything. So as you have various, what one of the biggest challenges I had in terms of working for a larger organization was the ability to collaborate between multiple teams. I had IT, AP, finance, procurement, and the only way to bring it all together was have a common ground, common communication ground. And so what this is really developing that common communication framework to bring everything in a holistic, view, if you will, to allow everybody to work in that same kind of direction, path, and speed.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really cool about this is customers are saying, "Can you tell a story?" I mean, we're sitting down with a company that is out of Texas. They're one of the fastest growing drone companies, and they got top security clearance things we got to deal with too. But we can provide some of the reporting, but out of AWS or out of Azure, you can't pull the pricing out, so you don't get to see their pricing.
Yeah, this is specifically, so this is a perfect use case. They're a GCC high. So when you're dealing with government cloud, they do GCC high for your Azure environment. On that Azure environment, you can see all your resource information, but you can't see the spend information. So we need to work with them to develop a custom reporting methodology so that they can see their spend in real time, as opposed to waiting till the end of the month when they could get
So as
surprised.
we gather the data, we can